My name is Jared Green. I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service at the Eastern Massachusetts National Wildlife Refuge Complex, and I'm also a graduate student at the University of Georgia researching the effects of head starting on a Blanding's turtle repatriation project. So we're actually going to try and catch a juvenile turtle. We catch all of our turtles once in the spring and once in the fall. For our head-started turtles, they wear radio transmitters that have radios that need to be swapped out every 6 months to replace the battery. Our juvenile turtles, since they're a little bit larger, they can wear a radio that gets a larger battery. And so this guy actually doesn't need a radio swap, but we still capture them each year in the spring and the fall just to see how much they're growing from the previous capture. The Blanding's turtle is a threatened or endangered species in all of the states in New England in which it occurs. Here in Massachusetts, they're listed as a state threatened species, and so two of the larger populations in New England occur on wildlife refuges in Massachusetts. And so what we're doing is we're trying to start a new population here at Assabet Refuge, taking hatchlings from one of our other refuges. And so how we're doing that is we're taking, we go out in June to one of the refuges that has a stable population, and we actually go out and protect all the nests that the females lay. We do this by going out to the nest site and watching the females as they lay their eggs, and then putting metal fencing down to protect the nest from predators such as raccoons and coyotes. Then we come back a couple months later and actually remove the hatchlings from the exclosures, and then half of those hatchlings get released right into the wetland at the donor site, and then the other half come to Assabet to be released. And so half that comes here actually is directly released into the wetlands here at Assabet, and then the other half we actually head start, which is basically just raising the hatchlings in captivity over their first winter to increase their growth rate. And how that happens is the turtles are kept in warm water and they're being fed every day, and so that actually increases their growth rate by 3 to 4 times what it would be normally in the wild. And our hope with this is that when we release these head-started turtles into the wetland, is that they'll have a much greater chance of survival just because they're so much larger. How we're gonna catch the turtle is using telemetry. So we've got our antenna and our receiver box, and so the turtle we're going after has a radio transmitter on the back of its shell, and that transmitter has an individual frequency which I can plug into the receiver box, and then using the antenna determine the general direction that it's in. So we've been tracking our turtle for about 30 minutes now, and we've got the gain turned down pretty low, so we're fairly close to getting to the turtle's location at least. So I'm going to try and pinpoint the turtle's location with the antenna, and then once I think we're right on top of the turtle, I'm actually going to remove the antenna and the cord and just use the tiny antenna on the receiver box, and that'll hopefully give us the exact location of where the turtle's at, and then I'm just going to reach down and try and grab them. And so this process can take anywhere to a few minutes to up to a couple hours, because the turtles can actually move pretty fast down on the bottom. Alright, got him. So it was actually the second option. I was reaching down around the bottom, and that caused him to come down from where he was hiding down on the floor of the water to come up towards the surface. So here is our turtle. So this is a juvenile Blanding's turtle, and here on the back of his shell is his radio transmitter.
Okay, give me a second here.
Now that we've captured this guy, as I mentioned before, he actually doesn't need to have his radio replaced yet because its battery is still good for another 6 months. So all we're going to do with this guy is he's going to get weighed and measured just to see how much he's grown since we last captured him in October. So each Blanding's turtle gets an individual mark so that we can identify each individual. And how we do that is we actually put little notches in their scutes. So if you can see here, we file these notches in their scutes, and we use an identification system where each scute is assigned a number. And so this turtle is actually juvenile 29, and so he's got a notch here in his second scute, which represents 20, and then he's got notches 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the fourth and fifth notches here, so he's juvenile 29. And so, as you can see with Blanding's turtles, the best way to identify them is if you look at their throat. It's got a really bright yellow pattern to it. Painted turtles are the more common species that you'll see around here, and they do have some yellow striping on their necks. But if you look at the Blanding's turtle, on its chin and its throat is completely yellow. And when they're out basking in the sun, they'll stretch their neck out really far. And so that's the best way to identify them. Also, this guy's a juvenile, and so he's still got quite a bit of growing to do. But an adult Blanding's has a really highly domed shell, whereas a painted turtle will have a much lower, kind of smoother shell. So that's another good way to identify them. This guy weighs 507 grams. So this guy is too young to know the sex yet. As Blanding's turtles get older, they show kind of different characteristics that you can use to sex it. One of the things is if you look at the plastron on the turtle, a male, the plastron will be concave, and part of that is so he's able to kind of mount the back of a female's shell. And then females, it won't be concave, it'll be kind of flat like this, and that's just so that there's as much room in there as possible for the eggs when the females are gravid. One other thing too is you can look at the tail. The males will have a much thicker tail, and also the cloaca here, the distance from which it's from the plastron is another tool. But probably the easiest thing is just to look at either the concavity of the plastron or the size of the tail. And one other neat thing with the turtle, with the Blanding's turtle, is you can get a general idea of how old it is by looking at its plastron, which is the bottom part of the shell. So the plastron will have growth rings, kind of like you would see on a tree. And so you can just basically count these little growth rings on here and get a general estimate of how old the turtle is. Now the turtles can have kind of extra rings if they had periods of longer growth. So it's not exactly correct, but you can get a general idea of how old the turtle is. So if I count this turtle here, I can count. So this turtle is probably around 10 years old based on the number of growth rings there. We're all done with our measurements, and so the turtle is ready to go back. We always put them back exactly where we caught them, just to have a minimal impact on the turtle. We also try to keep our handling time as quick as possible. So this guy we had in our possession for no more than 10 minutes, and now he's being released right back to where we caught him from.